Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Kyiv today, delivering another $1 billion in U.S. aid to Ukraine. And sweltering heat has forced many schools to dismiss early this week as students go back to class. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Kyiv today holding high-level talks. He's honoring Ukrainian soldiers lost in the war with Russia. And NPR's Brian Mann reports he's delivering another $1 billion in U.S. aid.
Blinken arrived in Ukraine's capital city after a noisy night as Kyiv's air defenses rumbled overhead. Ukrainian officials say they successfully intercepted a barrage of Russian cruise missiles. After a train ride from the Polish border, Blinken met first with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba.
We want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs not only to succeed in the counteroffensive, but has what it needs for the long term to make sure that it has a strong deterrent.
Blinken is announcing another $1 billion in military, humanitarian, and economic aid. He's also meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who's just returned from visiting troops fighting on the front lines. Brian Mann, NPR News, Kyiv.
U.S. lawmakers face a deadline this month to pass legislation to keep federal agencies funded through the next fiscal year. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports any agreement on government spending is likely to be challenged by a group of Republican hardliners in the House.
Members of the House Freedom Caucus are pushing to cut government spending levels to an estimated $120 billion less than what House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden agreed to earlier this year. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says this far-right faction of Republicans would be to blame if lawmakers are unable to reach a deal.
All sides must work together in good faith without engaging in extremist or all-or-nothing tactics. Look no further than the example we've set here in a bipartisan way in the Senate.
Failure to reach an agreement by September 30th could trigger the fourth partial shutdown of federal agencies in a decade. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
Sweltering heat has cut short many students' first day back to school. NPR's Sequoia Carrillo reports on some early school dismissals.
Schools along the East Coast and in parts of the Midwest changed their schedules, in some cases sending students home early, due to heat advisories and lack of air conditioning. Districts in New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin called for a half-day on Tuesday to get students home before the temperatures peaked. At some schools in Pittsburgh and Baltimore, students were told to stay at home and log on for virtual learning. Many schools across the country don't have adequate AC to rely on. A 2020 report from the Government Accountability Office found that 41% of school districts need to replace their HVAC systems in at least half of their schools. Sequoia Carrillo, NPR News.
President Biden speaks to union members and West Coast port operators today at the White House. Port workers have ratified a new contract. This is NPR.